Well, hello, everybody. This is Damon Pistolka with Andrew Cross here again today on the Exit Your Way Business Roundtable. With us, we've got Walter Crosby from Helix Sales Development. Welcome, Walter.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you having me here.
All right. Well, we're on a couple minutes late today, and Andrew and I are going to try to get us over onto LinkedIn and get the links into the people on LinkedIn so they can see us live. But we're a couple minutes late because we were actually just laughing with Walter. I hope you enjoy talking with Walter as much as we do because Walter is a true sales professional. He's been in this a couple days, and we are really happy to be able to talk with him. And the thing that I think I'd like to start out with, Walter, can you kind of explain to us a little bit of, how you figured out that you wanted to be in sales, and then how you figured out that you wanted to work and help people with sales management?
Two different questions. So let me start with the first one, the easy one.
Yeah.
I got into sales the same way a lot of other people got into sales. It was sort of, I just kind of tripped into it.
Yeah.
I got an economics degree in college, so I didn't go to business school. So that doesn't qualify you for corporate America. So an economics degree allows me to read the Wall Street Journal, understand what's going on, understand the difference in interest rates and, bond rates, how all that works together. But it doesn't really prepare you for anything other than grad school and sales. So I just sort of tripped into it and just enjoyed trying to help people solve problems. And that's really, to me, what it's about, is that, whatever product or service that I've sold in the past, it was trying to find somebody that I could add value and help them. And sort of the string that my career has gone, that's part of the career, is you always got to try to figure out a way to help people. And if you're doing that, then the sales process is fun and rewarding for everybody.
Very cool.
And in terms of your second question, I really got into sales management during my career for the same reason that a lot of sales managers become sales managers, is that you're a good salesperson, you're a top salesperson, so the boss thinks that you can manage the rest of the salespeople. The sales process is fun and rewarding for everybody. So in terms of your second question, so I'm getting an echo. I really got into sales management in my career for this.
All right, Andrew, do you have the volume on your LinkedIn? I think mine. There we go. We're good.
Bad enough to hear me once. I don't want people to hear me twice.
Yeah.
So sales management, I fell into that because I got promoted because you're a top salesperson. They figure you know how to manage the rest of the salespeople. So you get promoted into that. And, my friends who were salespeople and competitors would be like, why would you want to go manage a bunch of people like us? It's just a bucket of headaches. And, how are you going to do that? And it happened to me a couple of times in my career. And I sort of enjoyed the challenge to figure out how to get other salespeople to follow a process, to create that accountability, all the things that sales management is. So I didn't have a great plan coming out of college that I was going to do these. I just sort of tripped into it, and the bar for sales is pretty low. Luckily for Walter.
So, go ahead, Andrew. Did you?
Yeah, no, and I think this is great because, we had talked with you before, and if you want to get into it a little bit, one of the biggest frustrations that we come across from our clients or even ourselves in our careers is getting the right people in the right seats, or those sales teams. It's really a trial and error, and a lot of roadkill along the way, and a lot of frustration on both sides. I mean, yeah. So, if you could share a little bit about, how do you do it? How do you find how do you find salespeople? How do you get them there? What's the secret, Walter?
It's hard. I think that's not a secret. It's a difficult process, and I think the most challenging part of it is for when a business owner believes that somebody needs to have industry experience. There's times when that's important, when it's a highly technical piece, but I would argue that if somebody's in that sales role and they're trying to develop new business, that you could bring in somebody later that has the technical skills to help demonstrate competency for the company. But it's really about finding somebody who will sell in your marketplace to your decision makers with your price points against your competition. And if you don't have a strong process to get there, and you don't have a way to evaluate the various candidates against a standard and against each other, how do you know you win?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, we follow a process when we're asked to help find salespeople. It starts with writing what is called a Shackelford ad. Shackelford was the guy that he was from Britain, and he was going to go explore Antarctica. And so he wrote an ad that was 3 or 4 lines long. I can't quote it, but it was like low pay, very dangerous conditions, may not come back alive, but great rewards, right? So he sold this position by attracting the right people that wanted to live on the edge, that wanted some glory and were willing to risk it all to get there. So you take that concept and you write an ad for a salesperson so that when they read that ad, it's describing them.
Yeah.
You want them to be able to say, that's me. I do that. Wow, I do that too. And this really sounds like me. Maybe I should apply for this. So the idea is you're attracting the right people to come towards you, to come towards that role that you're trying to fill. So that's really the first piece of it. And it's really where a lot of companies will go wrong.
Yeah.
In that they write out job responsibilities and accountabilities.
Yeah, exactly. That's what a job ad is. You say, well, this is what you're going to be doing, and these are your responsibilities, and you got 5 people that are, you got 27 accounts or whatever in this region of the United States, and that and that. But what you're saying is you're speaking to the person, so that if they connect with that, then they would be more likely to respond to it, is what you're trying to do.
Yeah, well, exactly, but you're trying to attract the people that you're looking for. So that ad needs to be written in a way that describes the individual and what their attitude, what their behaviors, what their, the activities that they're used to. I'll give you an example that you talk a little bit about the marketplace in your industry. You talk about who that person needs to call on. So if they need to call on CEOs of mid-market companies with employees of 10 to 200. So that's something that a salesperson can think, well, I do that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to, you're going to say, we sell on value. We don't sell on price. And you sort of get into the philosophy of what it is you're looking for, what it is you want them to do. And it's a narrative rather than a bullet points of all this boring crap that you normally see. So you stand out just by looking different.
Well, we've been talking a lot with in other sessions and some of our roundtables, with a lot of our consultants working on, core values, and deeper than and beyond the mission statement. Is this are you going into that kind of level? So they, we were trying to figure out, okay, what's the role in that to assess, potential hires, and sales included. It could be, anybody on your team, right? So, and then really understanding your core values, honestly understanding them.
Well, the salesperson has to have integrity and on all of those ethics, right? That's got to be a minimum standard. But if you're talking about cultural fit, Andrew, is that what you're thinking? You're kind of alluding to?
Oh, when you mentioned the fact that instead of just bullet points, you're actually saying, when I read this, oh yeah, that's me. I'm going to be that. That's a place I would fit, right? So which to me kind of brings me back to the core values, right? Too, do we share that, necessarily? And I'm bringing this up here. I'm very curious about it because I've missed it so many times when I'm on the hiring end.
I think that there's an element of that when you're describing what it is you're looking for. And for a salesperson, I wrote an ad recently for someone that, this salespeople had a bad reputation within the organization, right? Because everybody thinks we're lazy and that, we just go to 3-hour lunches and we play golf. So,
well, we do.
Well, it's irrelevant. You still got to get the job done. But the point is that you need them to be team players. They need to be able to bring something to the table and realize that's an important part of the role. But it doesn't stop there. You have to be able to fulfill the rest of the needs of the organization. You got to help operations. You're help, making sure marketing understands what it is that you're working with and when those leads are right and when they're a little bit off, and how that messaging all fits with your sales collateral. But you have to be able to help finance, right? Because if you need purchase orders or deposits in, whatever that company needs. So that teamwork aspect of it, I think, is part of the ad, that you're an important role, but you're an important role within many roles, and we have to work together. I think that's often left out, where the salespeople are these little mavericks that are running around, and there's an element to that, right? We need to have that, be willing to go out and work in the world on our own, and hunt and come back with the meat that everybody else is going to work with. But when you come back, you got to be able to help everybody else. You got to make sure you're giving the data. You got to make sure you're communicating everything. And I think that's part of that, and it's part of what we put in the ads.
Yeah. And
I saw a statistic once that to the average, executive level salesperson, life cycle with a company, at least in the job aspect, was around 18 months or so.
Sales,
which is and it's even gone down.
14 months now.
High turnover, 14 months. Is that just because they aren't getting it right? It's the wrong people. They don't, or is it what's going on there? I mean, on that kind of stuff. And it seems to me, if you're early in sales, you don't care because you just go on to the next thing. But
well, if a VP of sales or a sales leadership role in general, there's a different set of skills for that person than a sales manager.
Yeah.
There's a different set of skills from the sales rep, the salesperson, the business development person. That VP needs to be able to think more strategically and make sure that the tactics that are in alignment with that strategy, and that they're carrying the message from the leadership team all the way through the sales organization. And that's different than the sales manager who's basically taking those orders and those tactics and making sure that they're being executed, and they're coaching the salespeople, and they're making sure that the role of the salesperson is supported. So you're looking at different sets of skills in those three pieces, right? Sales managers, sales leadership, and salespeople. They're different skill sets. So I think why that the lifespan is so short is probably a couple of things, but what would jump out at me is the CEOs have a very short window of trying to create success.
Yeah.
And that person is a natural fall person, right? If sales isn't cutting it, we can get rid of this person, get a new one in. And it just kind of it doesn't connect. So there's usually a connection between leadership of the organization and the sales leadership. They're not on the same page, and they're hiring somebody who thinks can execute a strategy and create a strategy, and that piece is missing, that bridge. And it's really important that they're able to pull that out of the CEO and understand really what the mission is, and then how that strategy fulfills the mission, and then the tactics. So they really have to bridge quite a gap on both sides, right? They're a little island that's trying to satisfy two sides of it. And it's an even more difficult role than sales management.
So do you think that that time frame is because they can't get the clear direction, or or there's some inherent leadership problems in the business itself that are overall, but it's just being manifested through sales, the high level sales turnover, because that's the scapegoat in the whole thing?
There's a bit of the scapegoat piece of it, but it also comes back to competency. If we're going to be candid, sometimes those people get put into that role for political reasons, in that they've had a track record of success at a different level, not dissimilar from salespeople to sales managers, right? There are different levels of skills and competency that's required. And if you don't have that leadership component and that ability to manage the managers and provide that strategy, you're going to fail. It's just a shorter window than sales managers, because CEO is buffered. They don't talk to the sales managers to any significant level.
Yeah.
So it comes down to competency in leadership and strategy. And, we're able to help evaluate that person, see if they have those competencies and where their strengths and weaknesses lie in that area. And the CEO needs to take some responsibility to coach that person. Or assign somebody to coach that person.
Yeah.
Be successful.
Yeah. Because I think,
that lack of communication, it kind of interests me a little bit there too, because the salespeople are talking to the customer directly. Are we tone deaf? Is that a strategic, fall off there? And, another reason that, we're not listening?
Well, salespeople may not be listening to really what's happening. They may not be really listening to what that prospect or what that customer is saying. So there's a problem there. And then communicating that up to their management level. And if that management's not savvy enough to see that there's some truth and some value there, then they got to be able to kick that back up, so on and so forth. So communication is always an issue. Doesn't matter if you're in business or at home or your kids, doesn't matter. Communication is the root of most of these problems, that somebody's not listening. And your point is valid, that the salespeople need to be listening to that prospect and to that customer to be able to take that intelligence back up the food chain and share it and be respected enough to do it.
Well, and also, if they're doing that, it needs to be heard up there too. I think that's one of the experiences I see quite a bit is the upper management is not listening to the customer, and that's
often the case, and sometimes the filter is the problem. But I mean, I've been in situations where we were rolling out a product as I was a salesperson. We were rolling out a product that was going to be launched in 3 months, and as salespeople, we were telling the R&D guys, this is close, but it's not what they want. This is not different enough from what we were doing, right? This isn't solving the real problem that we told you about.
Yeah. And
in that situation, the R&D guys were the smart guys, and we were just dumb salespeople. So it took a while for them it had to fail.
Yeah.
And we had to drag them out, put them in front of a customer, and let the customer say what we've been telling them for 6 months.
Yeah.
So there's that too, right? That
yeah.
The filter is just not willing to hear the truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and it comes back again to what you hear day in and day out. If anyone's talking about marketing or anything, it's really understanding and listening to your customer. I don't care what you're talking about on the front end of a business, but that's the focus of everything. And
yeah.
And it really, one of the things that we've done in the last year that's really interesting is when you start to when you think about your customer and get very, very deep in detailed and ask questions of them about challenges and different things, you don't know them nearly as well as you thought you did.
Nope. And that's really a challenge for salespeople, is that they typically will not dig deep enough.
Yes.
They don't ask enough questions. Mm-hmm. They don't ask the tough questions, and they don't ask those questions that make the customer feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? That's where you're getting to the truth. And so you have to be able to go there, and then you have to be able to listen to what's being said.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell salespeople, a discovery conversation or discovery meeting with a prospect is literally a conversation with another human being where you're curious about what is happening with them, what their problems are, in the context of what it is that you do. So if you approach it as simply a conversation where you're curious, it's not any different than having, a beer with a friend. Yeah. And it's like, you did what? Why would you do that? Right? It's the words are different, but the concept is the same. And it's just getting comfortable having that meaningful, deeper conversation, like you said. So you really pull it out, and then hope that somebody else is listening to what you need to be able to deliver.
Yeah, it's really hard to do. I think people on the after you've gone through it a few times, I think people just think, oh well, that's they're going to be able to tell you right away. And it's really hard to make a connection like that and really peel it back, to kind of be relentless about it, to get the truth, to really get the answer, really get the truth.
Well, and even in our own sales process, I mean, we've worked on ours, and Jeffrey Graham helped us in the beginning, and others continue to help us refine it. But when we talk to people about our sales process, they often go, wow, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time you spend with someone before you even give them an estimate or even tell them that we can work together. But we're very deliberate about asking almost too many questions about, in-depth things that people go, well, why are you asking about that? But it uncovers so much when you do that.
Well, and when you get to that level of depth, you start to see how everything fits together. You see how all of these pieces are connected. And typically, if you've done a discovery process really well, that prospect should be viewing their problem or viewing the way they're going about their business differently. Like, they should see that this is a bigger issue than they thought. If you're able to help them. Sometimes there's not a fit, right? If you're having a conversation and everything's great, you can't help them. You can't force something onto somebody. Yep. If there's not a problem that you can solve, you can't force that. And I think that's where some salespeople that are inexperienced get sideways, because they think they have to sell every prospect, and every prospect isn't a customer, right? Mm-hmm. You're looking to disqualify them as quickly as possible. The way I was taught, if you're going to get a no, you want to do that at the beginning or after you've done a bunch of work and spent a lot of time over here, right? I don't want to do a proposal to get a no. I want to know over here, and then there's no guarantee, right? You could still get the no, but at least you're understanding that everybody's on the same page, and you're uncovering the information. And if somebody's not willing to share what it is that you need, maybe they're not qualified.
Yeah,
or not ready.
Yeah, and not ready. And in our case, there's a lot of information that we ask for, and just in how long it takes to prepare that information and get it back to you tells us a tremendous amount about that client and whether or not they're going to be able to do what we want to do.
Right. If they can't produce that document or know relatively quickly, that gives you a lot of data.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. Sure. And especially if we're doing something that's going to be financial with them, as far as working with anything financially. If it takes them forever to produce, simple financial statements, we know that there's a lot to do underlying to what we're going to get ourselves into.
Yep.
And it tells us an awful lot. But that is, sometimes people think they have to sell their stuff or whatever they're doing, but it really is uncovering the challenges, and if your solution is a fit to it, and then talking about how the world is with your solution. Or I'm not saying it right, but that was a big realization for me.
Well, so if you're selling a widget, right? And I don't care if the widget is promotional products or capital equipment, it's still a widget.
Yeah.
And if you think back about, back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, the companies needed that salesperson to deliver the information. They needed to know the features and benefits. You bought a car back then, right? How did you find out about the car's features, right? Unless you went to the dealer. Today, all of that information is available to you on this internet thing, right?
Yeah.
And they've already done tons of research. They know a lot of information. They may think they know something that you might have to help them see from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And you do that by asking questions, not by saying, I have a better widget. So it's somewhat counterintuitive, but if you start talking about your product or you start talking about your service, you've diminished your ability to sell value to whatever that is.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned one thing too that is really important in almost everything, is building your value proposition with a potential customer. And whether it's you're selling a car or a widget or a service, you really need to be able to build that value. And otherwise you're just going to live on price. And
you have to position what you're doing. You have to position whatever your offering is in the context of that prospect, in outcomes that are meaningful to them. Not about I got this cool feature. My computer's faster than their computer. Doesn't matter. What does that computer give that prospect? What is he or she able to do with that faster processing speed?
Yeah.
And you say this to a younger salesperson, but that prospect doesn't care anything about you. They don't care anything about your product. They care about what you and that product can deliver to them.
Yeah.
And they'll care about you later.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, we talked about this once before. If you're a salesperson and you need to be liked, that's what you're going to be worried about, and you're not going to be able to do what needs to be done. You're not going to be able to ask those tough questions. You're not going to be able to position your product in terms of that prospect in the context that's meaningful to them.
We did talk a little bit about this before we got on the air, but maybe we can talk a little bit about the BS, right? Seeing, being in this for a while, and going through this process, I don't know if we're jaded or not, but the ability to, what is BS, seeing through the BS or being able to get rid of that, what does that do for you? For sales,
as salespeople, what do we have? What's the commodity that we have to protect? Is our time.
Mm-hmm.
And we can flitter away our time in any number of ways. So we don't need help from our prospects. We don't need to be doing busy work. We don't need to be writing proposals for people just because they ask.
Yeah.
Right? We need to understand, are they ready for a proposal? There's, I have it in my head. I don't say it to people, but have they earned the right for that proposal? Because that takes time. Mm-hmm. It's information, it's intelligence that they could go deliver. Are they going to just go show their current supplier and say, hey, Walter's going to do this for this price. What are you going to do? Right? Mm-hmm. It's being able to go through that process and protect your time in the sense that you're trying to provide value to them. So if somebody's if they want to buy on price, I learned a long time ago that how to handle that. It's just one of a half a dozen objections that we hear.
Yeah,
they're just packaged up differently. So you have to be able to protect your time and qualify these people to the best of your ability. And if you're really looking at it as I'm trying to add value, I'm trying to help them, maybe they don't want your help. Okay, move on. Maybe it's not a good fit. Maybe your product isn't a good fit. In my career, I've told people, hey, look, what we have, it's overkill. You need this little thing over here, and call my buddy Bob. He'll help you. And that comes back to you.
Yes, it does.
I mean, call it karma, call it whatever. You've done the right thing. That's what you should do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, actually, you're finding out, do they really need it? That's honestly, it's a good question. You want to find that out. This is great. It's really interesting because I just went through this with a client who wanted evaluation, and they, I was telling them right from the beginning, I was pretty sure they didn't need it. It was going to be too expensive. It wasn't going to do what they thought it was going to do for them. And I've had this happen before, and they absolutely insisted, no matter what I said, to talk them out of it. But in this case, this was the right thing to do.
And as a professional, we need to, to make sure that they understand that. And sometimes you have to really hold up a sign and say, you're making a mistake. I was in the sign business for a while, and this guy wanted this massive thing on the side of his building, and he had it all pictured in his head, and it's what he wanted. And I'm like, I can do that. It's going to cost you $25,000, but I'm going to have to charge you 50. And he was like, why would you charge me twice as much? I'm like, well, because it's not going to work. You're going to hate it, and you're never going to give me any referrals. And I built my business on referrals. What you really need is this thing over here on the right side of your building where all the eyeballs are, and that's going to cost you $8,000. And I had to literally convince him to spend less money because it was the right thing to do. We later were able to build off of that, but that guy became, my referral buddy. He kept just telling people. He talked me out of spending $25,000, and that was his sales pitch for me. And I got plenty of business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really doing the right thing, like you said.
Yeah. Well, excuse me. You really have to do as you said, the right thing. And if it's not something that they're going to need or it's going to fix their or solve their challenge, you do have to. If you want to, like you said, if you want the karma to come around right, you need to do the right thing.
Exactly.
And now you mentioned something a little while ago that I thought would be interesting for us to cover is a good salesperson, a stellar salesperson, does not always make a good sales manager. And the situation that we run into a lot of times is the sales manager is simply the salesperson that has lasted the longest. But can you just hit a couple of the highlights that go, you're a great salesperson, but you might not be a good sales manager?
It's a good question. I mean, it's pretty in depth, but let me try to break it down into simple. They're simply different skill sets.
Yeah.
Right. You've been on as a sales manager, I've been on sales calls with sales reps where my job as a sales manager is to observe, maybe ask a little question here or there to kind of steer the conversation, but it's not to do. It's not to actually make the sale for that rep.
Yeah.
Because they don't learn something. So that if you're a good salesperson, your instinct is to jump in and save the day, right? To be the hero. And as a sales manager, that's not what the best thing to do is. We need to debrief that salesperson, coach them on what they should have done or what they could have done. You can head some of that off at the pass with a good pre-call plan as what's the outcome? How do we know we got to win here? How do we know if we got to where we need to go? So 50 to 60% of a sales manager's time is coaching. Right? I mean, I don't care what sport you've played. We've all been coached.
Yeah.
As a kid by our parents and by literal coaches. So you have to have that ability to pause and allow them a chance to learn. And sometimes, maybe they lose a deal. Hopefully it's not a big one, but you got to give them some chance to spread their wings, make a few mistakes, and try to coach them up on that. So, it's about identifying what the plan is to achieve, what we did well. A debrief is really, really important coaching tool. Where you start with the end of the conversation. This is a tip for a sales manager. You debrief by telling your salesperson, okay, you want to talk about the meeting that you had this morning. Great. How did it end? And what's the next step? And the salesperson inevitably wants to go to the beginning and tell you the fairy tale. Right? We've all done it.
Yeah.
And I don't want the fairy tale. I want, what did you agree to do? What was that agreement that you made at the end of the call, at the end of the meeting? Well, it was really wishy-washy. Okay, that's problem number one. So we can work backwards, in that way. Allow me to ask the questions to help them see it. another tip that's a counter to what good salespeople do is somebody asks you a question as a sales manager. You don't want to answer the question necessarily, right? Where's the file? You might want to answer that. But, how do I do this? You ask them 5, 6 questions to help them let them discover the answer.
Yeah.
If they figure out the answer and they walk away like, oh, I got it. All right, great. And they run off, and you've actually coached them. They've learned something that they figured out for themselves, rather than you just saying, put these 2 pieces together and you have, your answer.
Yeah. Harkening our old friend Jeff Graham, you can either teach them to fish or you can buy them a fish,
I mean, that's literally that's the mindset. But when you get promoted or you become a sales manager, I never got a book, a manager.
Yeah.
I mean, the books are out there. There's a couple of great ones, but those were never presented with the new business card. The assumptions were made. So those skill sets are important for that sales manager to implement. So, I mean, 50%, 60% of their time coaching. And then if they have the systems and processes in place, the accountability is the easy part, right? Because you've tied their personal goal to a metric that you want them to achieve every day, every week, every month. So they want this, and I don't care if it's material or, intrinsic, they want some adulation or they want a new boat. I don't care. It still has to be tied to that metric.
Yeah.
They've agreed to do this. So that's the accountability piece becomes simple. The hard part is that some salespeople don't belong at the company in that role.
Yeah.
And the sooner that's figured out, it's the best for the customers, the company, the individual, all of the individuals.
Yeah. And those are some great, I mean, I got some notes here. What the topic was the keys to sales management. And, I think you hit a couple of them in here. They got to be coaching. They need to be teaching, and there's a lot of review and feedback in the process, and making sure that people have clear metrics on what they're doing. Those are just some key things that are really good about sales management that you hit, I think.
And you brought one up earlier. You talked about your sales process. So that's the other thing it's critically important. If there isn't a documented, staged, milestone-centric process that you can follow, that you can teach, that becomes common language, how do you do anything?
Sales process, yeah.
So the manager and the salespeople, I mean, on your experience too, is it really apples and oranges? And you're either a salesperson or you're a sales manager. Can you be both? Never do the paths cross? It does seem like a lot of people that's where a lot of things fall apart.
Well, if you're a sales manager, you've probably been a salesperson, right? Unless you're the CEO and trying to wear a different hat.
Yeah.
Right. That's really one of the terrible things that happen is, instead of promoting their best salesperson to sales manager and losing all that revenue and frustrating everybody, that CEO might, step into the role, and they might not have any experience and they don't have the time. So as a sales manager, you've probably been a salesperson, so there should be some empathy there. But what you don't have is that management coaching component, and that's something you have to learn and you got to practice, just like sales. So it can work. I had to really, really work at it because it's incredibly frustrating. I mean, the old joke is it's like managing salespeople is like herding cats.
Yeah.
And that's no fun. It's very tiring. So you have to have that system. You have to think differently as a sales manager as opposed to a salesperson.
So it can be learned.
It can be like most roles have some element that is trainable, that you can learn. And, there's plenty of books out there that can help you, that you can still learn. As an old guy like me, you can still learn. I learn every day. But if you get promoted to that role, or it's something that's been contemplated, you need help.
Yeah.
Definitely.
How are we doing on time there, Damon? Are we?
Oh yeah, we're good. We're good.
Right.
So, a couple other things. I mean, no, this is great because we were talking about the keys to sales management, and I mean, you're hitting them. And the one that you just finished up on is sales process. And I didn't realize until we started working with other salespeople as well, is like, you need to have a process. It needs to be, contact number 1 is like this, contact number 2 is like this, contact number 3 is like this. And this is the goal of each one of those stages, because as you said, then I was wrapping it up with your debrief. Did you do what we do on the third call or the third interaction or whatever you call it? Did you do the 2 or 3 takeaways that you needed? Did you get that piece of information? That process is so critical to make sure that it's consistent.
How do you know? It's like a football field, right? Or a baseball diamond. You got to get to first base before you get to second base. You can't just run the third and come home.
Yeah.
Right? There's a process, and you need to know where you are in the process. You need to know how many balls and strikes there are. So as to what you're going to do, you're going to need to be able to, if you're trying to steal second in baseball, right? There's certain things that you have to do.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what success looks like, how do you know when you get there? And then how do you know if you missed a step?
Yeah.
And
yeah, exactly.
A critical piece of a process is being able to understand the problem that they have and find that problem or pain or difficulty, whatever their issue is. But you can't just stop there. You have to be able to figure out how to monetize it.
Yeah.
If you don't know what that problem is costing them on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis, how do you leverage that later when somebody wants to spend some time thinking about it or looking at options? Mm-hmm. I was taught 25 years ago that your discovery process is like opening up the person's chest, pulling out their heart, and showing them, it's like, see that little valve right there? That's not working right. That's got to get fixed. What would you like to do? Right? It's a little over the top. It's a little aggressive, but it makes the point that if you don't really help them see how important it is, whether it's money, time, or risk, one of those elements, if you can't leverage that, you're probably not going to be successful.
Well, there's the skill, I think, too, right there. That's the connecting dots. That's really when it gets down to it. And going back to discovery, most importantly, if you're talking all the time and it's just the features and benefits, you're not getting the information you need to be able to connect the dots. And that's you're not going to get there.
Yeah.
You're out of control when you're talking, and when you're listening, you really have control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's why the questions are important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you were standing back and you were going to create, you're sitting in a company today, they don't have a sales process. You just start by taking your best people and asking them what they do and how many, what the steps they take, or where do you start?
That's exactly where I would start, is go to the people that are being successful developing new business. Not the people that are managing accounts, right? That's a different animal. It's needed. It's important. But if you're looking at building a process for developing new business, you got to go find the people that are doing that. And when you find him or her, you basically sit down with them and you want to suck everything out of their head.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have a process.
Yeah.
They just don't know it.
Yeah.
And to be able to pull that out of them through a conversation, that gives you the nuance. I have a sales process that is a 5 stages that works on its own to 90%, and then we fill in that nuance.
Yeah.
You have a little bit of a discovery piece. You have a different way to start. You have a different way to end, right? But the main part of that qualification, always asking the same things and getting those answers.
Yeah.
So if you find out what they're doing on those top people, what they're doing on a regular basis, you're off to the races.
Yeah. Good. Good. Yeah, because it's important, because you see this all the time. I'm sure that you go into places that have been relatively successful, and there's no process anywhere.
Happens all the time.
Yeah. And they look at this, and it's a pretty daunting process, or pretty daunting task ahead of them to document a process, and then really start following that process and doing the sales management that they need to do. But it does as you've seen and proven in a lot of the work that you do. That's where you have to go to get to the next level of effectiveness.
Yeah,
it's really you can change revenue, increase it by 15 to 18% by having a staged process that follows the buyer's journey, that is milestone centric, that fits what your market. That will grow revenue if you get people to change their behaviors 15 to 18%. If you don't do anything else, don't do any training work, don't do any coaching, and that comes from Harvard Business Review and Objective Management Group statistics. I mean, that is like, it becomes the language.
It does. It really does. It really does. Even in our internal, when we talk about our sales process, we know we're at our second interaction, and this is what'll happen. We know this is what we do. This is what we do on the third interaction. These are the kind of things we're talking about. It's you get to that level of detail, and it makes everyone understands what the objective is going into that meeting. And from the salesperson's perspective or the sales manager's perspective, I would imagine that gives a lot of clarity in both of them. If I'm a sales manager with the salesperson in there, they both know what's supposed to happen in there. And
the accountability becomes, pretty simple, and the coaching becomes a little more clear. It's like, we seem to be doing a poor job of digging into why this is a problem. We're not getting enough of that why. We're not understanding how much it's costing them.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with a salesperson this morning that, he has trouble monetizing the problem because he's uncomfortable talking about money, and he has a higher need to be liked. So he doesn't want to make that person feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So he has trouble asking those questions. When you combine those two issues, it's a challenge. They have to really have to be coached around that to elevate their game.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
well, it's good stuff.
Well, this is fantastic, Walter. So tell us a little bit. You've got a new brand coming out for your company. I mean, we're really talking about the stuff that you do for clients too. I'd love to hear it. Tell us how you do it and how you can help people get their processes going and get the people in the right seat, and kind of let's hear it.
Thank you. There's really two areas, like I call entry points. If a sales organization is having trouble retaining their salespeople, so we call it churn.
Yep.
So if they've got, talked to somebody a couple of weeks ago, they had 40% churn, and when you really walk them through how much that costs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrifying. you know, and then there's the soft costs of what it does to your customers when, you know, they got a new guy coming in or a new guy coming in with a business card. Now I got to reteach this person, or, you know, it's just, it looks bad. So when that happens, that's a place where we can help them reevaluate their hiring process, help them understand that hiring salespeople is different than hiring an engineer. It's different than hiring an admin. It's different than hiring anybody else in the sales organization. Because, I mean, this is an old joke, but often a salesperson's best sale with the company is what happens in the interview. It's because they know the product and they can kind of tell the story the way they want to. And it, you know, the interviewers are not as well trained at interviewing the salesperson. They don't know how to look at a resume and say, wow, this is interesting. You were top salesperson in the Midwest region last year. Awesome. How many salespeople in the Midwest region? Oh, it was just you. Oh, I mean, and I'm not making that up. That actually,
yeah.
So you got to be able to call the BS where there's BS. You know, when I look at a resume and I'm interviewing somebody, I've assessed them. I've had a phone conversation with them. My goal, and this is what we teach, is that interviewing process should be a little uncomfortable for the sales candidate.
Yes.
We want them to feel how the customer and the prospects are going to treat them. Professional, you know, we're not being mean, but we're going to ask tough questions. And we're going to point things out that may be uncomfortable for them. It's a test. Every question, every interaction, we're watching what they do. And it's not until the last interview where you bring in those 2-3 candidates that you like, and it's a final test, right? You want to check out a couple of things, and then that's where you sell the sizzle of the company and of the role. And that can be wildly different. So we help them with that process to reduce the churn, to get salespeople that will sell in that role. And we have 91% accuracy that if we recommend somebody using our assessment, that they're going to rise to the top half of that sales team in a year. And it's not just our tools; it's the whole process and how you write the ad. It's the whole thing. The other where we start is if a CEO is just frustrated that the sales organizations, their pipelines, their forecasts are crap, and they're discounting them 20%. They're frustrated that they can't get the team to do to hold margins. They got a better product than their competitors, so they should be getting a better margin, and the salespeople keep pushing that down. So if they're frustrated or concerned about some aspect of that, we can, you know, I approach it as like, we want to figure out what it is they need to know. Can the team be more efficient? Can that team be more effective? You know, how much more effective can they be, that group?
Yes.
And what resources are going to be needed to elevate them? And what's that ROI? I mean, that's our approach, is to be able to answer those questions for them. So we're looking to give them information, and then a strategy to solve the problems, and then implement it. We actually roll up our sleeves and go to work.
Well, that's what I've always liked about talking with you, Walter. There's a lot of people that'll put together a good plan, but that isn't worth shit unless you can get it implemented, you know. And it just is. That's our whole philosophy.
Yeah, it makes it it makes it a little bit more challenging, right? Because you're not walking away. You're just saying, you know, let's work together. Let's do this. You know, they have to have commitment and desire to do the work, right? If that CEO, that business owner isn't committed to solving those problems, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
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 So that's one of the things that
That's yeah, and in our business as well, that's qualification.
if
Yeah.
they don't, if
You know,
if I can't be successful because that person isn't committed or have the desire, then I don't want to start because it's not going to work.
Yeah.
well,
It doesn't
we
end well.
find this too. It's not necessarily because and again, and that's back to discovery and finding what they really want. But it's really important to understand that, yeah, I mean, theoretically in their minds, they want to have more sales, right? Who doesn't? You're going to have more sales, you're going to have more profit, but they're in our situation with small businesses. A lot of them, there's a lot of risk that's associated with that.
Mhm.
They're pretty comfortable, kind of where they're at, and it's good to find that out, right? I mean, maybe, and then again, that gets back to maybe you don't need this. You don't need 20% year-over-year sales growth.
Exactly.
Fine with what you got. All that does is create more headaches. I mean, it can. It certainly can, or as it grows, it gets out of control. And our clients in particular are controlling people. They like to be in control. So we run into that too, but that's we love working with Walter. Fits in with the exit your way, and what we're trying to do too is in order again, because they come to us and the goal is to accomplish successfully selling their business, and and for what they want for their business. Well, in order to do that, you got to listen to the buyer, which is now the buyer of the company. It's not your customers. You're not selling your product anymore. And that control you have and that kind of stuff may have worked for you, but a buyer is looking at it in a different way. And we found that buyers, like anybody else, buyers are going to want to come in. They want to see something, and they want to buy into something that's going up.
They want to see it go up, and they want to know that what you're doing can be repeated.
Exactly.
And scaled in some cases, right?
And scaled. Repeated and scaled, both of it. Yeah. And that's why it's so important.
Which is the same thing as being repeated, so all the risks that they're identifying in their diligence process when they're looking under the hood before they buy a business, it's so critical because that sales process, that machine is highly valuable.
Yeah.
In the transaction to the buyer to have that.
And yeah, you've really, I tell you, I know that some people that listen to our videos I go, man, you guys really get in depth about some of the topics we talk about. But when myself from running businesses before and listening to what you're talking about, there's a lot of good nuggets in here about sales management, sales process, and what you need to do that. And then when we talk about the difference in the way you hire a salesperson and your process for that, and the way that you actually qualify candidates. Not only, I mean, you do assessments on candidates, you do assessment on their existing salespeople to make sure this whole thing works together, because it is so critical. I think there's a lot of good in here, and we're running out of time here, and I want to just make sure that if people are trying to get a hold of you, Walter, where are they going to do that? Where are they going to be able to find you?
So we're in the transition mode. My new website, my new brand isn't on the street, so they can go to waltercrosby.com.
Okay.
And there's plenty of ways on there. They can go to LinkedIn. They can look up Walter Crosby on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it really starts with a conversation, like how we met.
Yeah.
It's like a 15-minute conversation to figure out if we should keep talking. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. I was thinking too that I was watching Andrew with his Michigan cup there. You guys are. It was funny when I saw that you're a Detroit guy. Both of you guys are Michigan grads. It's interesting you were there at the same time. It was funny when we initially connected on LinkedIn. I don't know how the heck I saw Michigan, but you guys were there at the same time too.
Yeah, Andrew probably spent more time in the library than I did.
Oh, I don't think so. I doubt that.
Maybe Rick's or I don't know what Charlie's. Maybe
Charlie, good time Charlie's, yeah. The pretzel bell, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's great.
Those were all like the library. You could go there and
Steve's Diner, Steve's Lunch. Yeah.
That's funny. You know, you guys went to the same school when you say a name and the other person just laughs.
Yeah.
Something came to their head.
It's one of the like the guys that are part of my life, you know, from 30 years ago, over 30 years ago now, that you know, that bond is there. It doesn't go away. Ann Arbor, that movie, The Big Chill, with, I mean, that kind of speaks to how we're tied to that place.
Yeah.
Football was better back then, but it's different.
Yeah, I mean, I moved out west 20 years ago, you know, into Seattle, and then our alumni club out there is, you know, 12,000 members in the Seattle area. It's the second largest, which I never did the alumni association. I lived in Michigan. You know, I didn't need you to do that, but when I moved out, I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. It's like everywhere you go, you find it.
2 weeks after I graduated, I was in New York City, and that's immediately what I gravitated to. Was the U of M club in New York. And I was an officer, vice president of the club, and my best friend was president. And, you know, we organized activities. We had a good time, but it was all tied around University of Michigan.
Yeah.
I got one last question. That's a big football stadium now. How many people does that hold?
112,000 now.
As is 112 and change.
Oh God, that's big. That's
big.
big.
And COVID is going to be, it's been what, 60 years of consecutive
sellouts,
100,000 plus crowds. That's going to end this year, looks like.
It'll end, but there'll be an asterisk because there's no football games that are going to be played. I think
you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think there'll be any.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Right.
It's good stuff. Well, I just want to thank you again, Walter. For everybody that's listening to the roundtable, we've got Walter Crosby here with Helix Sales Development. If you want to get a hold of him, waltercrosby.com. Also check out the comments. I'm going to put a link to his profile, and reach out to me if you can't get a hold of him, because I can. So we'll put you in touch.
Guys, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I always love the conversations.
Oh, it's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.